Last time we studied the structure of a typical neuron. In this lecture, inshallah ta'ala, we shall be covering synapse, its definition, different types of synapse, their details, neurotransmitters, their distribution and fate, and then we shall complete this topic by some description about the neuroglia. So let's start with the synapse. A synapse is a site where two neurons, they come in close proximity with each other and functional interneuronal communication occurs. The site of such communication is called a synapse. जहाँ पे दो न्यूरॉन्स आके मिलती हैं, उनके एंड्स आपस में मिलते हैं, एनाटॉमिकली नहीं मिलते लेकिन फंक्शनली दे कम्युनिकेट विद ईच अदर. उन दोनों एंड्स के बीच में एक स्पेस होती है. ये जो एक साइट बनती है ऑफ यूनियन एंड फंक्शनल intercommunication between the two neurons is labeled as synapse. Boton is an axon that, like in this diagram, you can see there is a single axon having a single expanded terminal end. So such an axon having a single expansion at its terminal end is labeled as boton. And boton-D passage is an axon having a series of such expansions at its terminal ends. Types of synapse. This is a very important topic and it is commonly given SAQ in the written examination by the University of Health Sciences and other University of Examinations too. So we divide the synapse on the basis of site and on mode of communication. So depending on the site of synapse, we have at least recognized 4 types of synapses: exosomatic, exodendritic, exoaxonic, and dendrodendritic. Exodendritic is the one where axon of one neuron functionally communicates with the dendrites of the other neuron. In exosomatic, as the name is self-explanatory, soma referring to cell body or perikaryon, axon of one neuron functionally communicates with the cell body directly of the other neuron. In exoaxonic, two axons from two different neurons, they communicate with each other functionally again. And dendrodendritic is the type of synapse where the dendritic processes of the two neurons come into close contact with each other and functionally communicate. Depending on the mode of communication, we have 2 types, because in one type some chemicals are released and in the other type the communication is through the electrical or ionic exchange. So we have 2 types depending on the mode of communication: chemical synapse and electrical synapse. In the chemical synapse, the ultrastructure of a chemical synapse includes a presynaptic terminal, a postsynaptic terminal, and in between the 2 terminals, we have a cleft, a space labeled as synaptic cleft. Let's see a few structural features of the presynaptic terminal. It is basically the terminal axonal expansion. It is thick, having high density, contains presynaptic vesicles containing the neurotransmitters, as well as a large number of lysosomes is present within the presynaptic terminal. Regarding postsynaptic terminal, it is also thick, having high density, contains subsynaptic clefts in the form of webs, and contains parallel cisternae. Synaptic cleft is a space between these 2 terminals, being 20 to 30 nanometer wide, separating the 2 opposing surfaces, and it usually contains the polysaccharides. The electrical synapse is in the form of gap junctions containing ionic channels extending from the cytoplasm of one presynaptic terminal to the cytoplasm of the postsynaptic terminal. The communication between the two terminals is purely electrical in the form of ionic channels. These communication sites, they allow the flow of ionic current from one cell to the other without a minimum of delay. This type of communication allows the syncytial activity of the cells, and it can be bidirectional. So you can see the differences between the two types of synapses. The basic structure is almost same, with synaptic cleft being replaced by the ionic channels or filled by the ionic channels in the electrical, unlike the synaptic cleft, which is actually a space in the chemical synapse. Secondly, this is a more fast conduction compared to chemical type of synapse, which is a bit slower as compared to electrical synapse. Secondly, the flow of impulse can be bidirectional in electrical synapse, but it is not the case with the chemical synapse, in which the flow of the impulse is usually unidirectional or in one direction. This type of synapse is very important when in certain organs where syncytial activity of the cells is required. And the classical example is the heart. Its myocytes or muscle fibers, they have to pump, all of them, they have to contract or they have to be stimulated at the same time, all of them. So electrical synapse are a necessity in such tissues because they are fast conducting synapses with minimum of delay and are bidirectional. Hence, they can be a fast way to spread the impulse at the same rate, at the same time, within a group of muscle fibers. So let's take a look at different types of neurotransmitters which are released at the chemical synapses, their distribution, their types, and their fate. So depending on their actions, the neurotransmitters released at the chemical synapse are again divided into two types: neuromediators and neuromodulators. What is the difference between the two? The difference lies with their actions or mode of action. Neuromediators, they merely mediate the impulse from one junction to the other. Neuromodulators, on the other hand, they enhance, prolong, inhibit, and limit the principal neurotransmitter's activity. So let's see some features or some neurotransmitters related or grouped or categorized as neuromediators. We have acetylcholine when it comes to nicotinic receptors, L-glutamate, and GABA. Acetylcholine and L-glutamate, they show rapid excitation by opening the cation channels. GABA, on the other hand, is a rapid inhibitor, and it opens the chloride or anionic channels. Mode of action is through the ionic channels by opening the ionic channels. Location: these neurotransmitters, they are commonly found or commonly associated with the motor and sensory systems. Neuromodulators, on the other hand, include acetylcholine with muscarinic receptors, serotonin, histamine, adenosine. Their mechanism of action is through G-coupled second messenger system. They are found with systems controlling or responsible for the maintenance of homeostasis, that is the internal environment of the body. Acetylcholine, its distribution and fate. Distribution, it is found at the nerve-muscle junction, autonomic nervous system ganglia, and parasympathetic nerve endings. In CNS, however, it is found to be associated with the motor neurons, especially in the hippocampus part of the brain, and found associated with the visual and auditory systems. Their fate is that after they're done with their action, they are degraded by an enzyme which is present within the synaptic cleft attached to the synaptic terminal, and this enzyme is called choline esterase. It's a very important MCQ, and though it is not commonly asked SAQ, but often it is given as a note. Write a note on distribution and fate of acetylcholine. Catecholamines. Catecholamines include the epinephrines and norepinephrines. Distribution is that they are found or released at the sympathetic nerve endings in the peripheral nervous system, and in the CNS, they are found associated with the hypothalamus. Their fate is that, unlike acetylcholine, which is degraded, catecholamines are actually retaken up by the presynaptic nerve endings instead of being degraded like acetylcholine. Dopamine distribution, it is found within the brain, especially in the basal ganglia and substantia nigra, part of the midbrain. And their fate in most of the cases is unknown. So moving on to the final topic of today's lecture, which is neuroglia. What is neuroglia? These are the non-excitable sporting cells of the nervous system. Excitable cells are the neurons, and the non-excitable sporting framework of cells is called neuroglia. They are in structure much shorter than a typical neuron, but their number is far more than that of a neuron. So it is said that in the body, almost more than 1 trillion neurons are present. But neuroglia even outnumber those 1 trillion neurons by 5 to 10 times. So their number is quite high. They make up, because of their increased number, they make up half of the total volume of the brain and spinal cord. Neuroglia include cells like astrocytes, oligodendrocytes, microglia, and ependyma. So let's see their description one by one. Astrocytes. Astrocytes are the branching cells with small processes, and depending on their structure, they have been divided into 2 types, fibrous and protoplasmic. Fibrous type, they have long, slender processes with small cell bodies. However, protoplasmic type of astrocytes have small bodies as well as short but thick processes. Both of these types have cytoplasmic filaments, whereas fibrous type has an additional feature of perivascular feet, and this perivascular feet is also present with the protoplasmic type. Location. Fibrous type is present within the white matter of the nervous system, whereas protoplasmic type is found to be located within the gray matter of the nervous system. So if an MCQ comes about the astrocytes, asking you that which type of astrocyte is found to be a sporting cell within the gray matter of the spinal cord or brain, the answer will be protoplasmic type. Here, this is the diagram showing the 2 types. There is a fibrous type having long, slender processes and small cell bodies, whereas protoplasmic type also have small cell bodies, but compared to fibrous type, their processes are shorter and much thicker in density. Moving on to the functions of astrocytes. Astrocytes are very important sporting cells to the nervous system, central nervous system, and their functions are of extreme importance from both clinical point of view and examination point of view. In written questions, the functions are often asked by the University of Examination. So let's see the structures of astrocytes. They provide a supporting framework. They are electrical insulators, take up potassium ions, store glycogen. They show phagocytic activity by replacing the dead neurons, produce trophic substances, also help in the limit the spread of neurotransmitters, especially GABA. They contain an enzyme called glutamine synthetase. They contain GFAP, which stands for glial fibrillary acidic protein, which can be an important marker in certain diseases involving astrocytes. They are identified by monoclonal antibody A2B5, and they also can be a conduit or passageway for the metabolites, transportation of the metabolites. Moving on to oligodendrocytes. Oligodendrocytes, when it comes to their structure, in comparison to astrocytes, have small cell bodies, show no cytoplasmic granules, and unlike astrocytes, they have few delicate processes. They are found to be located in rows along the axons of myelinated neurons in the central nervous system. So their function is to myelinate the neurons in the central nervous system, as well as influencing the biochemistry of the neurons. Microglia, another type of neuroglia present within the central nervous system. They are considered to be smallest of the neuroglial cells, with wavy branches containing spines at the end. They are found to be scattered throughout the central nervous system, and their primary function is to show phagocytic activity. Hence, they show proliferation in certain diseases. So they are basically labeled as monocytes or the phagocytes of the brain or the central nervous system. So this is the shape and size of a resting or inactive microglia when it is not performing its function. And here is the shape and size of an activated microglia actively participating in the disease conditions. Ependyma. Ependyma is further a group of cells. What type of cells combine to form ependyma? Ependymal cells, tanycytes, and choroidal epithelial cells. So it's a combination of three types of cells. Ependymal cells, they are columnar or cuboidal, having microvilli and cilia, show gap junctions between their two cells or adjacent cells. They are found to be located within the linings of the ventricles and central canal of the spinal cord, and they function to transport and absorb the cerebrospinal fluid. Here we have tanycytes. Tanycytes show long basal processes and end feet, which are found to be lying in close association with the capillaries in the brain. They have tight junctions between the adjacent cells, and they are found to be lining the third ventricle. Choroidal epithelial cells, their sides and bases are shown to be thrown into different folds. They also exhibit tight junctions among the adjacent cells, and they overlie the choroidal plexus of vessels. And their primary function, along with the choroidal plexus of blood vessels, is to produce the cerebrospinal fluid. So this was all about the normal anatomical features of the neuroglia. In university, often a question is asked that what histological changes can be seen in the neuroglia in case of certain diseases, especially multiple sclerosis, which is considered to be one of the degenerative diseases of the central nervous system. So particularly two cells from the neuroglia show histological changes in case of diseases like multiple sclerosis: oligodendrocytes and microglia. Oligodendrocytes, in case of disease, they expand they swell up, they show small gaps in the form of vacuolization within the cytoplasm. Small gaps or spaces, they are formed within the cytoplasm. The nucleus becomes pycnotic. That means the nucleus is shrinking. It becomes shrunk, small in size with condensation of the chromatin inside the nucleus. So such shrinking changes that are associated with the nucleus are labeled as pycnotic changes or pycnosis. Microglia. In case of diseases, they retract their process in order to migrate to the site of the lesion, where they proliferate and actively show phagocytosis to eat up the diseased tissue, and in certain cases, pathogens as well. Because of this proliferation and phagocytic activity, their cytoplasm becomes laden or filled with lipid and dead cell remnants. And in further advanced stages of the multiple sclerosis or other diseases, microglia are often joined by the monocytes that reach the site of lesion in the central nervous system by blood from the periphery. So I hope this topic was of any help regarding the MCQs and other university examination, as well as normal anatomy of the nervous system so far.